Here are my longsword fights from the HEMA tournament at the Victoria Highland Games on Sunday, May 20th, 2018. This was actually the first tournament I signed up for. Most tournaments in North America are in the US, and I haven't been able to travel outside of Canada lately. But this one was right here, and I felt that my injuries are manageable enough at this point, so I gave it a try. The tournament was organized by Blood and Iron, and a number of other schools also participated. These are just my longsword fights for now. I have tons of footage from the event. Not all of it good, but it'll take a long time to edit that. Anyway, so I'm not going to list all the rules of the tournament, but here's the scoring. Only solid hits with the edge on and sufficient blade contact and rotation are counted. The cut must travel an arc of at least 75 degrees. Cuts to the head are worth 4 points, thrusts 2 points, cuts to the body 3 points, thrusts 2 points, cuts to the legs 2 points, thrust 1 point, cuts or thrusts to the arms are worth 1 point, and a covered thrust that controls the opponent's blade and keeps you safe meanwhile is worth 5 points. After blows, meaning receiving a cut or thrust shortly after landing a hit, subtract 1 point. There are no points for doubles, and 3 doubles in the same match means both fighters lose. Doubles are punished to discourage fighters from just chasing points without protecting themselves adequately. When the total fighting time in the match reaches 90 seconds, the timekeeper will announce last exchange. So there is a time limit. Let's get to it. My first match was against REESE POLLOCK. I already knew that he was a very good fighter, so my first reaction was like, oh crap. But I tried my best. I was sleep deprived but had quite the adrenaline rush, so my movements are quite twitchy here. This cut wasn't counted because it landed only with the very tip of the blade. Wouldn't cause a very deep cut, so not a fight ender. He almost displaced my cut here, but I hit him in the arm, so it was a double. Oh, it's terrible to see my nervous, twitchy footwork here. I gotta work on that. And there interrupted his undercut with a cut to the arm. So 1 point. By the way, after hearing all this for almost 10 hours, I kind of hate bagpipes now. Nice cut to my head. My blade was too low there, so I couldn't stop it with just a weak of the blade. I'm moving in here and cutting immediately to the arm. I was overall forcing myself to be as aggressive as possible because I know that I tend naturally toward a rather defensive fighting style, and that usually doesn't get me anywhere. I need to really force myself to be more aggressive. If all you're doing is waiting for an attack and defending, then you're just not really threatening the opponent, and eventually they'll get you. It's only a matter of time. As we moved in for the undercut, I was trying to create distance while striking to the arm, but I underestimated just how fast he would move in. So even though I got the cut to the arm, he actually landed a thrust afterwards. So 1 point minus 1, which leaves me with 0 for this. This round was going pretty well, and then I had a funny screw up. I was just focused on the exchange with REESE, and I didn't see terribly well, so watch what happens here. Ring out. I just stepped right out of the ring. 1 foot outside of the ring is acceptable, but both feet out means 1 point for the opponent. That was pretty funny. Frankly, I have no idea what I was doing here. Countercutting at the same angle in the same quadrant is just dumb. The best you can hope for is a double. That just never works. A thwarting cut would have been fine, but this, nope. Anyway. From the parry, I landed a leg cut, but REESE did a very efficient rotation and cut to my torso. So 2 points for the leg cut, minus 1 for the afterblow. As always, there was a bit of frustration from how much the full protective gear limits the range of motion, but of course that's a disadvantage that everybody has to deal with equally, so the only thing to do is more practice. This leg cut wasn't valid because it hit mostly with the flat. It's called no quality, whenever the cut is not sufficient. I'm guessing REESE noticed my overly twitchy, tiptoeing footwork here and just decided to rush in and push me out of the ring. I didn't have my feet planted firmly enough and my stance was too high, and an unstable platform makes it quite easy to break the fighter's structure. That was the last exchange due to the time limit, so REESE won the match. He fought very well, made it all the way to the finals and won bronze, so congrats Reese. As usual, footwork needs improvement. What else is new? My next match was against Val, who I've actually sparred with. The other people in my pool I actually haven't met in person before, so I had an idea of what to expect. Except that in a tournament, everybody fights a lot harder. We basically started our cuts at the same time, but Val was a bit faster and got my arm, so 1 point. So at this point the adrenaline was at a somewhat more manageable level, and I was a bit more cautious, still trying to be aggressive, but not going completely over the top, so to speak. Here Val did a false edge cut to deflect my cut and then went for the wrist, but only the very tip of the blade connected, so it was insufficient contact. In this exchange it was quite difficult for the judges to see what was going on, and we're supposed to keep fighting until the judges call point or hold. But I had to call this one right here that they didn't see. It was a very solid cut to my forearm. I still felt it a couple days after. And generally in tournaments, fighters can self-call hits against them. So if this would award the opponent points, you can say I actually received a valid cut. You just cannot call any of your opponent's hits invalid for obvious reasons. Common sense and sportsmanship. Here I landed a cut to the hand. I was aiming for the head or body, but the hand was just in the way. So that happens when the arms are not far enough out, which is really difficult in full kit. It limits the range of motion quite significantly. There I came in with a thrust and followed up with a cut. So here you can see what a covered thrust means. You can actually see her blade clashing against mine as I do the thrust. That's the point of a covered thrust. If you can do it in such a way that you keep yourself protected or control the opponent's blade so that they can't strike you, that's all good. Worth 5 points, and that won me the match. The third match was against a fighter from a different school who I've never met, so I had no idea what to expect. Nothing there. In this case, even when looking at the slow-mo footage, I have no idea, and I can't hear what was being said over the blaring of the bagpipes and the other background noise. It's not clear. I was going for a leg cut, but I don't know if it was valid. I can't remember. And at the time I could hear next to nothing under the mask and with all the noise. It was just... yeah, I have no idea what you're saying. No idea where my score is at or anything. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're just focused on the fighting itself. My cut landed flat. You can see that quite well in the slow-mo, so no points here. You'll see flat or otherwise insufficient cuts quite a number of times in this footage. The full kit and especially the gloves make it quite difficult to maintain good edge alignment. I was trying a squinter to counter the thrust, but again the edge was off. I'm pretty happy with that one. Deflected the thrust and then there's the thwart cut.
Head strike, 4 points for red.
Managed a pretty decent thwart there. Something good happening at the other ring, obviously. So you'll always hear some announcements because there were 2 fights going on at the same time. For this one I had to make sure to pull the strike and hit fairly gently because any strikes to the side or back of the mask can be pretty dangerous. That's concussion time if you hit that too hard. That thrust almost got me. The point made contact with my hip, but it didn't go far enough for an afterblow. And that's the match. It was interesting to find someone who is much more focused on thrusts and binds. At Blunt Iron, we tend to emphasize cuts over thrusts a lot of the time. A discussion of cuts versus thrusts is on my to-do list, by the way. And the next one was also a fighter I hadn't met before. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. By moving laterally, Chad could displace my thrust and strike me in the head at the same time.
4 points blue.
The judges deemed this cut to not have enough rotation, and it also landed partially flat.
More rotation, please. Fence.
In this case, I didn't sell the feint well enough. I cancelled it before even getting a good response. I scored an arm hit, but received an afterblow, which looks sort of flat, but it doesn't really matter here because the afterblow shows that I wasn't adequately defending myself. So detracting 1 point is perfectly reasonable, which means I didn't get anything for this exchange. I tend to do a lot of arm cuts as a result of my naturally defensive style. Moving out of your opponent's measure while attacking their arms is one of the safest things you can do. Just doesn't give you a lot of points in a tournament. I think this was counted as a thrust to my arm with an afterblow. In the footage from this angle it looks as if it missed, but I'm not gonna argue. That's what the judges decided and it's all good. He was maximizing his reach here and managed to get my arm before I moved out. This was funny, so I was thinking, how do I get past this guy's defense? Let me try a thrust. And of course, he thrust at the exact same time. And he got my arm with that. That was pretty interesting. So now I'm back to a bit more defensive because I just needed some time to think. I needed to form a plan, and it just ended up being move back while hitting the arm again. That tends to work. Not in this case though, insufficient blade contact, and his cut was flat. Chad did quite well here. He defended against my cut and then he landed a counter cut to my chest. Now the judges saw a cut to his head, and I can see why it would look like that, especially from the opposite side. But in the video it looks like he actually caught it and the blade just bent over top of his sword and then just kind of whipped him like that. So not really an actual cut. Keep in mind, judging is really difficult. I did it myself in other fights at that tournament. So don't be one of those people who shout at the screen, "How did the judges not see this?" I can say it really is not easy to see exactly what's happening at all times. Sometimes, even in the slow motion footage, it's not easy to exactly figure out what happened. And then I managed to get his arm here. Always the arm cuts.
1 point red. Point blue. One area. 4 points blue.
And the old problem with thwart cuts and heavy gloves again. Landed flat, no good.
Hand shot red, but it was flat. No quality.
Last exchange!
And same here, Chad's cut also connected with the flat. I tried to do a cut to the head, but it was just incidental contact, so not worth anything. You can see Chad stuck more closely to my blade. As soon as I came around for the cut, he used the chance to cut to my chest, and that's what won him the match.
3 points blue. Match blue. Match blue.
He was a very challenging opponent to fight, and it was just overall a good, fun match. And this gave me a good insight into some issues with my form that I really need to work on. Anyway, hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.